Hello, I'm Rob, the Dungeon Tutor. I'm Rob, the Dungeon Tutor. Rob, the Dungeon Tutor. I'm the Dungeon Tutor. And I'm Rob, the Dungeon Tutor. Thanks for joining me. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Rob, the Dungeon Tutor, and today I have a very special topic in mind. This came up in social media when I was in a group for Dungeon Masters, and an issue came up. And I spoke up on the issue from my own perspective, and I was shot down because of rules as written. So today I'm going to talk about rules as written versus rules as intended. So, buckle in. Now, a game like Dungeons & Dragons might seem to be very tight. There's a lot of things that are very well defined. You know, I need to jump over a pit. I know how to do that. I make an athletics roll, strength is the modifier, boing, see how far I can go, and hopefully I can get over the pit. If I want to put somebody to sleep, I know the spell sleep, I know how much it can affect. If they have enough hit points, they can resist it, otherwise they go down, unless they happen to be of these certain different creatures that can't be put to sleep, like elves and the undead and things. But otherwise, sleepy time for you. I know there are a lot of things that are completely, thoroughly prescribed by the rules. And rules as written for those things can be very comforting for the game master. This is what the designers intended, and it works pretty well. It makes logical sense, and that's really what you want a game engine to do. You want it to make sense of the world so that a person thinking, my big, strong person who is trained in athletics has a better chance of getting over that pit than the reedy, weak, untrained person, that say our mage, trying to jump over the same expanse. I have a much better chance of being able to do it, although I do know he can roll better than me significantly enough to make up that gap. Maybe I had a bad jump and he had his best jump. That might happen. And in a game like D&D, that can make sense. No problem. We can understand that. But some things, when you get to specifics, sometimes kind of fall into a little bit of a hole, depending on your imaginations, your intentions, how you envision the situation unfolding. This is the situation that I'm talking about. The original poster was talking about the spell Darkness. And in the spell Darkness's description, it says that it is a spell that cancels light, making everything dark. We understand that, right? No problem. So that if a spell that invokes light comes into its area of effect and it is weaker than the darkness spell, it's quashed. It's dispelled. It's canceled. It's gone. I think most of us don't have a problem with that. The spell Light, for instance, the cantrip, if it goes into an area with darkness, gone, poof. And that's not even if the core of the spell goes into it. The target of the spell goes into the darkness as soon as the area of effect commingles. So you can be 20 feet out, or 40 feet out actually, the area of dim light as cast by the spell, poof, gone. That's interesting to know. That's not how I rule it, by the way. If the actual target of the spell, like say I cast it on this cork here. I cast light. All of a sudden it's really bright. Okay. This is a 20-foot sphere, so everything in the room I'm in is fully lit. Bright as day. Some good strong shadows, but you know, I can see everything in this room. I'd be able to see if there was 40 feet, I could still see somewhat, but anything within 20 feet of me I can see really well. Now, there's a darkness at the other side of this room, which from me is about 15, 20 feet away. We'll say 15 feet. In my imagining, because the source of the spell is not in the effect, technically, rules as written, this light spell should go out. Poof. Just because its light is shining upon the darkness spell. Its radiance is reaching there, and therefore the magic of that, poof, quashes my spell. I don't rule that way. I don't like that idea. And as a result, in my world, that doesn't happen. So even though it's not rules as written, I believe that maybe even rules as intended, they maybe didn't intend that. Actually, I've heard Jeremy Crawford, one of the lead designers, his intention is that does happen. It's something that I kind of have a problem with because the magic is here, and everything else is just radiating from it one way. Light is coming out from this, so the cancellation effect from that darkness doesn't have a chance to get at this. That makes sense to me. So that's as far as I'm going to go with that. So I would see the area of effect of darkness because that is where my light spell does not go to. And I would not see any kind of a shine to it. It would just be dark, period. So that to me makes sense. Now if I take my little light, which again, 20-foot radius isn't bad, and I walk over to that sphere of darkness, and I take my cork with the light spell on it, and I push it into the darkness, I can feel the light spell vanish. The darkness is too much and swallowed it up. I pull my cork out, and it is dark. The spell is gone. I can understand that. I am on board with that. No problems at all. I completely appreciate that. Okay, cool. So, here comes the rub. I cast a spell. Flaming Sphere. Flaming Sphere creates a ball of fire. And I can roll that little sucker around. The fire does create light. I believe it's 30 feet of light. Rules as written, I take my ball of fire and I roll it on over to that darkness. And as soon as that 30 feet of light hits the darkness, boom, my flaming sphere is quenched. Yes, it does create an area of effect of light with the fire because the light is incidental from the fire. But rules as written, it does create an area of light that if it comes within range of the darkness and it is second level or lower, as Flaming Sphere second level, whoosh, gone, poof. I have some problems with that. Now, again, rules as written, I can't argue. It's been shown to me, I've seen the text, I've seen the ruling, I just don't like it. Because I don't think that matches rules as intended. And I believe that a game master has license to interpret things in their world to make sense of them. As a matter of fact, I know it does. Ever since original Dungeons & Dragons, the rules are guidelines. And that hasn't changed in 5th edition. There's just less and less need to make interpretations. But to me, that's kind of a silly one. I don't see tendrils of darkness shooting out and killing my flaming sphere just because it brushes against a dark source. And even if I take my flaming sphere and I roll it into the area of darkness, oh, absolutely, it's not going to break through the darkness. As soon as it rolls into that darkness, I won't be able to see my flaming sphere anymore. The darkness is more powerful than the light that is issued from that ball of fire. I absolutely agree that the fire is defeated by the deep darkness of the spell. I have no problem with that at all. But here's the rub. It says it defeats a spell with an area of light. And yes, my sphere does have an area of light. But why does a spell that just is really about darkness have any effect on my fire? Because if I take a torch, I take my little torch here, and I go into, that's too loud. I take my torch and I walk into that circle of darkness, fire's on. I put it into the circle of darkness, I can't see fire. My torch does not give off any light because it is in an area of darkness. I understand this. I pull my torch back out of the darkness and it's still lit. Why? Because it's not a magical spell. It's not magical light. It's dark. It's natural flame. Flame is not affected by a darkness spell. Ah, so my flame here is immune to the dispelling effect of... I really have to shut that off. I apologize. I really thought those were going to be so cool, but they're too noisy. But the canceling effect, the dispelling magic of the Sphere of Darkness does not touch fire unless it's magical. And it isn't even consistent with that. If I cast Create Bonfire, which we understand creates some light, but it doesn't specifically say that it creates an area of light, I can cast my Create Bonfire in the darkness and it is not going to be dispelled. It won't give off any light. We understand that. But the fire will burn. Because rules is written, if it doesn't have an area of light effect, it doesn't affect the spell. Outside of negating the light that it casts off by the fact that it's a fire. Do you see where there are some holes? Do you understand this? Where I'm coming from, where I think it's silly. Now, there are ways around this. No problem. Because rules as written is one thing, but rules as written doesn't always make sense. It's a game. It has artificial things in it. And a game master has to kind of reach out and grab a system sometimes and make it make sense to them. And a dispel of my flaming sphere because you have a darkness spell up does not make sense to me. For the reasons I gave. Not because I don't understand that rules as written are rules as written. But the rules as written don't always account for everything that a person can project. And to be fair, too, Jeremy Crawford has also said that, yes, a sphere of darkness does dispel a flaming sphere in his mind. He was actually a little wishy-washy on it in the response that I saw. I may be reading a little too far into that, but that doesn't happen in my game. You can roll your little flaming sphere through and you'll lose track of where it is. I mean, you won't see it. You'll still be able to mystically sense where it is because you can guide it. But, yeah, it will be in the sphere and it will not be dispelled in my game. Because I believe that rules as intended for the rest of the universe's physics to make kind of sense to this, that doesn't make sense. It's not internally consistent. So, spells that purely make light, and even something like Fairy Fire, that just creates light. If a person steps into magical darkness, Fairy Fire is quashed. I have no problem with that. None at all. It cancels that weak magical glow. I'm fine. Other secondary effects that create just light, I'm fine. Light because it's shed from fire, only the light to me makes sense. I don't know. If you feel strongly one way or the other, feel free to leave it in the comments. But I think I've explained my position pretty well here. And as I said, I do have a solution too. So, my solution is pretty simple. It's a spell called Chilling Darkness. It does the darkening effect, sure. But it has a physical component with a cash value. Now this isn't something you cast all the time. Maybe it's a companion spell that can amplify the darkness spell so that it cancels fire effects that go through it. Because that then covers a larger area. Your burning hands, it'll cancel. Firebolt can't be shot through darkness. Through chilling darkness. See? Not that hard. And what? The component. Let's say either, diamond is sometimes called ice, so a 50 gold piece chip of diamond. Or maybe you want to lean into the darkness and you want to say onyx or obsidian. I'd be fine with that. Yeah, keep the cost at about 50 gold for a second level spell. Bing! I usually go 25 per level, so 50 gold pieces will give you a deeper, chillier darkness that actually can snuff out fire. And As a bonus for doing this, it will actually shoot out tendrils of darkness where light is intruding upon it to snuff it out. So now I'm going to roll my little flaming sphere along the edge of that darkness, and the darkness lashes out and snuffs out that flaming sphere. That's kind of cool, isn't it? Relatively easy change. Quite easy, actually. And kind of, you want to think about it, kind of opens the door to altering all sorts of spells. Add a special component, twist the spell a little bit, and you suddenly have a much richer selection of magics so that somebody can't just take your average spell for granted anymore. You know, if I'm going to change, say, Magic Missile and have magic harpoons that not only hit a person but can also hit the person behind that person, it lances through a person. Say I throw a 100 gold piece maybe not diamond. Diamond doesn't work very well. Maybe a miniature, either a focus, a miniature harpoon. That would work. Let's say a 250 gold piece value miniature harpoon that you have to cast that version. Still leave it at first level. Not changed too much, but now they can go through. I favor a liquid component. So say a miniature wooden harpoon costing 25 gold to have it made. Yeah, that would make sense to me. Also, my spell components that have a requirement like that can't be gimmicked. You can't just fabricate it. You actually need somebody to do it. Has to do with mystical intent and things like that. And something that's been created purely of magic is just too unstable. I'm good with that. And I think that could be a lot of fun. But that's something totally different. I don't want to go down that trail right now. But wow, it's a really interesting idea. Cool. So, that's my thoughts. Rules as written are perfectly fine if that's all you want to do, but that then requires you to kind of understand inside and out, and occasionally you're going to run into that rules lawyer, game master, or player who's like, that doesn't work because this rule says this works this way. And you're kind of taking away the potential narrative of the situation just to focus on the rules, which sometimes don't make a lot of sense, as my thoughts. So, again, agree, disagree, tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about the cool add spell component to tweak spells idea. I'm kind of really excited about the potential for that one. I think that could really make spellcasting very interesting. Could make it a nightmare to adjudicate, let's be honest, but I think it could be fun. Any rate, thank you for joining me. As always, I'm Rob, the Dungeon Tutor. Please, if you like this video, like, subscribe, share. I'm good. I'd love to talk to more people. But most importantly, comment. Either tell me how great I'm doing, or tell me what a hack I am, or if you think that I have real issues and I really should talk to a therapist about my fear of rules as written, whatever. That's not true. I don't fear it. It's just not my preferred way of going, but that's fine. We can discuss that too. But that's really what I'd like to do, is to talk to you. And again, if you want to talk to me outside of YouTube, you can always find me on Facebook as Dungeon Tutor Group, where I sometimes post videos and links to these videos. So thank you very much, one and all. Until next time, I've been Rob, and I'll see you. Thanks and farewell.